Test one. Good evening and welcome to our December Planning Commission meeting, our last one for the 2021 calendar year. My name is Arthur Ingram and I'll be sitting in for our chair this evening. As our meeting has been called to order, let's do our roll call. Adam Bell. Present. Rebecca Fincher.
Present.
Drew Gaynor.
Present.
Letitia Sanders Jones.
Present.
Laura King.
Present.
Larry Webb. Ray Williams.
Present.
And Greg West. Present. All right, and our chairman is absent today. First order of business tonight is the approval of the November Planning Commission meeting minutes. They were mailed out and emailed out. Are there any questions or revisions needed to the meeting minutes as printed? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve them.
Second.
I'll make a motion
Okay.
to approve the November Planning Commission meeting minutes.
Second by Letitia. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, meeting minutes are approved. The next item of business up for discussion internally is the subdivision review. We have a request for preliminary plat approval of Robin Marr Subdivision Phase 4, and James is going to tell us a little bit more about that.
Yes, applicant is requesting a preliminary plat approval for 23 lot subdivision. It's located approximately 70 feet east of the intersection of Peony Drive and Overcup. It represents the fourth phase of Robin Marr Subdivision. So they're on the sort of the south end of town, just north of South Donaghy, where it curves and goes up the hill. The proposed buildable lots range from 0.16 acres to 0.44 acres, which are consistent with the requirements for R1 zoning. It will access off of Overcup Drive and have a sort of a dead end on the east end of that, consistent with fire access requirements. And it will access through previous phases of the development. The lots will front on Overcup Drive and 2 internal streets. All proposed streets will require 5-foot sidewalks with a 6.5-foot green space. In terms of our comments, based on previously submitted construction plans of the subdivision, the plat will represent completion of 139 of the 141 total lots. The applicant is likely to bring in a subsequent phase 5 of this that is not represented on the previously submitted construction plans. Previously approved construction plans, the subdivision included detention pond and connection in South Donaghy, immediately east of the proposed phase. That would be something that would come with, potentially come with a phase 5. The development is consistent with the comprehensive plan, including the following goals: provide opportunities for a variety of housing choices, both suitable and affordable, situated throughout the city in desirable surroundings which reflect the needs of all citizens. Protect established residential areas from encroachment of incompatible uses and provide a high standard for development and redevelopment of residential areas. And provide a logical pattern of land uses throughout the community, incorporating an efficient relationship between transportation, protect established residential areas from encroachment of incompatible uses, and provide a high standard for development and redevelopment of residential areas. And provide a logical pattern of land uses throughout the community, incorporating an efficient relationship between transportation, protect established residential areas from encroachment of incompatible uses and provide a high standard of, for development and Larry, do you mind muting? Okay. So based on these comments and review, planning staff recommends approval of the preliminary plat contingent upon completion of the amended punch list and associated conditions of approval. These are indicate proposed locations of cageous monuments, add minimum finished floor elevations for each lot in the subdivision, provide all easements as indicated by the city engineer and Conway Corporation, other corrections as required by the city engineer, planning director, and Conway Corporation on the preliminary plat / street and drainage plans. And then you'll see the 7 conditions there, which those are fairly standard conditions. Any questions?
Any questions for Larry or comments or any clarifications needed?
No, sir.
All right, if there are no questions, bringing any discussion points or motion to move forward.
I'll make a motion that we approve the subdivision with the attached, with the listed conditions.
Second.
So, motion by Ray and a second by Rebecca. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right. Motion moves.
Do y'all not take opposition to this?
It's not open for public comment.
It's not,
No, ma'am, not that. No, ma'am.
not even from the neighbors.
No.
No, ma'am.
So what Tom Watson wants to do is.
That's considered a public comment. We're not taking public comments on that topic. Sorry.
I see how it works.
All right.
Must be nice.
All right. So that carried, by the way. I think we're good there. The Conway Planning Commission makes recommendations to the City Council on public hearing items. Items reviewed on this agenda may be considered by the City Council as early as January the 11th, 2022. Items not approved by the Planning Commission may be appealed to the City Council within 30 days of the date of the Planning Commission denial, with the exception of decisions made by the Planning Commission acting as the Board of Zoning Adjustment. A mouthful. All right, as we get into our public hearing items, the first thing on our list is a request for conditional use permit to allow restricted retail in an O2 zoning district for property located at 450 Hogan Lane. James?
Yes, and just a note previously with the previous item, anything that is a subdivision review item is not subject to a public hearing as indicated in the subdivision code. So we do have public hearings for conditional use permits and rezonings. The reason being is that's the vesting of land use rights. Once you get to the point of development, subdivision development, the land use rights are already settled, and so it's an administrative matter at that point.
Thanks for the clarification.
This application is for a restricted retail in O2 on 450 Hogan Lane, which is immediately south of the Chambers Bank at the intersection of Hogan Lane and College. It sits on about 1.18 acres in the Lot 4 Hogan Professional Park. It's not in any current overlays or there are no existing structures on the site. The applicant intends to construct a fresh produce business at the site. Comprehensive plan indicates the location for office use. The projected traffic impact would be modest on the site with an assumption of the site devoted to a 6,400 square foot store. It's anticipated it would generate approximately 577 vehicle trips per typical weekday. These estimates are based on information provided by the applicant regarding proposed activities, as well as data from the ITE and the trip generation manual. Current traffic counts on Hogan Lane are about 8,700 cars per day. So staff comments, the applicant intends to construct a 6,400 square foot produce market. The use is not allowed by right, but it is allowed as a conditional use in the O2 zone. Access to the site is proposed via Hogan Lane with the driveway shared with Chambers Bank. So that's on the north side if you see there on the aerial image. The proposed use is not consistent with the comprehensive plan in this location. The plan indicates office, and most of the surrounding developed area uses are consistent with the plan. Allowing retail uses in this area would establish a new land use pattern not present along this portion of Hogan Lane and could significantly change the character and pattern of development in the area. Typically, retail uses within greenfield areas of the city are intended to be established on property adjacent to the commercial nodes indicated on the comprehensive plan. There are no retail uses at the intersection of Hogan and College. The conditional use would not be wholly compatible with the office park setting established in the area. So based on that, staff recommends denial of the conditional use permit request on the following basis. The use is not consistent with the comprehensive plan and would establish a new land use pattern in the area that is not consistent with the existing character and uses within the area. So as such, the use is not compatible and could harm the area. Do y'all have any questions? Well, I think in terms of it not being consistent with the surrounding uses, it could very well additionally be an amenity. A lot of the basis of the sort of the recommendation is consistency with the comprehensive plan and the fact that there is no retail within that area. Looking at this tonight, sort of y'all's decision is in essence as to whether or not retail should be established within that area. Based on this, we would look at that differently in the future. If y'all said yes tonight to retail in this area, then we would subsequently, when something else came in, we would say, yeah, the retail would be compatible because it would change the land use pattern in the area.
Any other questions or comments for James?
So if we voted to make a motion, Mr. Martin, will we be voting to make a motion of staff recommendations?
Don't we have to hear public comments before we get there?
Yeah, we'll need to open it up to public hearing. I would make it, once it's time for a motion, I would make the motion in the form of approval of the project.
Okay.
Are there any other questions for James before we open it up to public comment? All right. All right, so we're going to open it up for public comment. The way it works is the first person speaking in favor of the project will get 10 minutes, and every subsequent person gets 2 minutes. Or is it 3 minutes now? 3 minutes. Once the people speaking in favor wraps up, the people speaking in opposition will get the same opportunity. The first person will get 10 minutes, and every person after that will get 3 minutes. When you approach the microphone, please introduce yourself and give us your address, and go from there. So, who's here to speak in favor of the project?
My name is Stephanie Schreckenhofer-Dace. I'm a realtor with Moore & Company Realtors here in Conway. My address is 950 Hogan Lane, Suite 4. And I'm here representing Mr. Chadwick, and I represent him on this contract that we have written for this property. And I'm not a good public speaker. I'm a realtor, so just bear with me here. And I also can't see, so I'd like to start by letting you all know that Mr. Chadwick, who is the owner of Green Thumb Produce, has been in business for 11 years on Hogan Lane. So he's not a stranger to Hogan Lane, and everyone in that area that travels that corridor knows Mr. Chadwick very well. So the property that he's been on for the last 11 years is just 0.3 miles from the proposed 450 Hogan Lane site. He specializes in homegrown fruit and vegetables and Arkansas natural products. And he's been operating in his business on this leased land there on Hogan for 11 years. So Mr. Chadwick has grown his clientele significantly over the years, has really become a familiar and welcomed business in the spring and summer months out there. I'm positive that most of us in this room are probably his customers. I know I am. And for some time, his customers have expressed how they would want Mr. Chadwick to have a permanent year-round business. So the zoning request for this 450 Hogan Lane property is to provide what the citizens of Conway and surrounding areas have requested. For Mr. Chadwick to have a permanent presence that will allow him to have his doors open more than he has been able to at his present location. In support of this zoning request, I'd like to state that the sellers of 450 Hogan Lane not only possess this property, but they also have more available in the area, even some that is adjoining this property and that's adjacent. So the fact that they accepted this contract and are welcoming this business speaks volumes to our request. The sellers feel that Mr. Shabwick's business is not only a positive for the community, but for future marketing of the other properties as well. They feel it's a positive for the area, and it's a needed business that would thrive. Along with the seller support, we also have letters of support from other businesses there on Hogan that will be in the direct vicinity of this business. We also have a letter from a happy client. I think that maybe you guys had gotten that earlier. I have these letters, and I'll kind of go through them, and I'm happy to present these to you guys, and y'all look at them. We have a letter from Edward Jones at 355 Hogan Lane, Chambers Bank, which is located right beside where this property is, right south of Chambers Lane, which they would actually share an entryway into this business. Hartman Animal Clinic at 385 Hogan Lane, and King Dentistry Office, which is located at 405 Hogan Lane. All these businesses have expressed support for Mr. Shabwick and feel his business will be an added perk for them, for their employees, and for the area in general. So we also I have a copy of these letters from those businesses, and the one I think that you guys might have gotten a copy from a client today. So I have these for you guys to look at if you'd like. Holiday week, it's kind of hard to get folks on board coming on a 7 o'clock on a Monday night, but they were happy to write these letters for us. In closing, before I open it up and see if anyone else would like to speak, I'd like to state that we realize the zoning request may not be fully like the city's plan has, and it might for this location, but we respectfully request that the commission view this request in light of the added value that it will bring and how much support this business has from the community and these area businesses that will be right around it. So I have a gentleman here, we have several here tonight with Mr. Shabwick. Mr. John Moore was going to just speak, if that's okay. Do you guys want these letters too? Would you like me to hand these to you? Pass them on.
Were the letters submitted as public comments or just given to you?
They were just given to me to provide to you guys. If I need to do a different procedure with those, I can. Like I said, I'm new to this, so.
Yeah, that's fine. I can bring it.
Just bring them to you? Okay.
I have several. I have two that I have to read. So
Okay.
if they are this,
Well, one
like,
of them is probably one that you have, but the
Okay.
others. Mr. Shabwick is here as well, if you guys have any questions for him.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is John Moore. I live at 5 East Post Oak here in Conway. I've been a customer and friend of Mr. Shabwick for 7 or 8 years. I know my family and I have really enjoyed getting his fresh fruits and vegetables, and just his business being there is very good for the community. I know we've recommended all of our friends, neighbors, everyone to come and get produce from them versus going to a Kroger or a Walmart, because not only are you getting the fresh fruits and vegetables that are available longer throughout the year from a sustainable source, but feel like it's a boon for the community. And I know my parents live in Maumelle and they travel here to get their produce as well. So, I mean, it's bringing people in from outside of just Conway for it. He's known at least around the county as being a good businessman and having good, product. And most of his customers are quiet, easygoing. I feel like even though it's a quiet restriction for this zone, I don't feel like it's going to be a disturbance to the community. I feel like it'll only be an asset, and the traffic impact will be minimal because he's only a block away as it is. It's not going to be any added traffic impact down Hogan. I know it. I wish that he was open year round. I look forward to him being able to be open year round so we can purchase more stuff from him and get that fresh produce for my family. But Thank you very much for hearing me.
Thank you. Anyone else to speak in favor of this request?
Hello, my name's Glenn Shadwick, the owner of the Green Thumb Produce. 1910 Poteet Drive is my address. Like they said, I try to provide fresh vegetables for the city here, and we start off every year in the spring with strawberries, and we end in September with watermelon. There's so many things that we would like to sell, but season's already over. For instance, turnip greens, pecans, musky dime, figs, Arkansas apples, but we can't do that because our season's already over, and my customers have requested it. That's why I'm requesting for us to try to go year round. And like Mr. Moore said, the traffic impact, I've already been there for 11 years. I don't feel like it's going to create a traffic jam over on that side of town because I'm only 0.3 of a mile down the street, which is one block from one red light to the next. I've got customers that come from all the way from Fort Smith, Oklahoma, Harrison. I got customers that, I'm not lying to you, that are coming out of Dallas, Texas. They're customers of mine that lived here in Conway and have moved away, and they call me to make sure what I have, and I'm going to be there, and they drive all the way from Dallas, Texas to get frozen product, which is purple whole peas, speckled butter beans, items of that sort to take back over there. And obviously when they come, they're spending tax dollars right here in the city. So many times we get the people that come from Oklahoma, Heber Springs, wherever, and they come to us and they say they'll buy their product, and then they'll ask us, can you hold it? Can you recommend somewhere to eat? Or we're going to go to Sam's Club. That's tax dollars that the city here is getting. I'm bringing more business in for these other people that are around here. So that's why I'm asking us if y'all can approve us and go from there. Is there any questions?
Mr. Shadwick, I have a question. Where are you currently located? Are you in a store?
No, ma'am. I have that big tent at 812 Hogan Lane, which is directly across from Razorback Pizza.
Is it by Dollar General?
Yes, it's Dollar General is right there beside me, and
I'm sorry, I don't live out west, so not everybody does.
The bank is on the other side.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I have one for you, sir. I have visited your stand before, and if I'm not mistaken, did I see like an EBT sign, like you take?
I do not take EBT.
Okay. Do you offer any other services?
As in, we take all credit cards, checks, and cash.
All right. Do you offer any kind of like work with like the food stamp program or anything like that?
I've never tried because we're a roadside stand. Just like every year, I contact the state to see if I need to charge sales tax, and they tell me every year, as long as you're underneath a tent, you can't charge sales tax. I've tried to give you the money, but they won't let me. So if we have a store, you're going to get sales tax then. Any other questions?
I think that's it.
All right.
Thank you. Is there anyone else to speak in favor? Okay, is there anyone to speak in opposition to this request?
Hi, my name's Brad Tilley. I'm a family physician at 495 Hogan Lane, and part owner of the building as well as the medical practice there. Also, next door to me in the same building is a geriatric psychiatry practice. As much as every day, I encourage my patients to eat fresh and healthy foods. I really kind of have two concerns. Number one is the fact that it doesn't really fit with the theme of the actual plat that we have now. Being mostly office businesses, things where you have a lower customer in and out. Number two is Many of my patients obviously are going to be elderly. Certainly our partners next door, the geriatric psychiatry business, they specialize in geriatric patients. And so my concern is that even though we may not see a huge number increase as far as the volume of traffic, my concern is that our patients would have difficulty with that. I would love to be able to walk across the street and get something to take home, but those two concerns kind of overpower my desire for the freshness. So I just wanted to make sure I got my voice out there, and I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else to speak in opposition? All right, if not, we'll bring it back into after James reads these letters.
Normally, I would not be reading letters submitted by applicant, but looking at them, we additionally have two others that need to be read. Looking at the provenance of the letters, they do seem to be legitimate, so that is why I am reading them. I'll start out with a first we received from Rhiannon Botsford. It says, "Hi James, I had intended to attend tonight's planning commission meeting." And again, we read these because they're received too late to get into y'all's packet, so therefore it's not out there publicly. That is the reason we read these. What I'm saying is, please don't submit us letters expecting us to read them in advance of the meeting. I had intended to attend tonight's planning commission meeting to speak on behalf of Glenn Chadwick's request for a permanent business for Green Thumb Produce, but due to illness, I will not be able to attend in person. I hope this email will suffice in my absence, as I would like to speak to Glenn's character and contribution to the Conway community. Glenn has been a Conway resident for over 14 years and has operated his outdoor produce stand for 11. Under Glenn's ownership, Green Thumb Produce has been a staple in the community, offering outstanding locally sourced produce that often sells out as soon as it's put on display. Glenn personally travels all over the state to ensure the quality of his produce and goods are freshly picked and unmatched in quality. He is a hard worker with an impeccable business ethic who prices fairly and goes out of his way to make sure his customers are happy. People come from all over the county each year to Green Thumb to get the very best fruits, vegetables, local honey, and jams available in the state. By approving his permit request to build a permanent structure, the city would greatly benefit from fresh seasonal produce year-round. With supply chain issues affecting our grocery stores, it's becoming increasingly difficult to find quality produce. Just this week, I purchased fruit for my family at a chain grocery store that was spoiled within a day. If Green Thumb Produce was operating year-round, customers would have access to higher quality produce longer in the season, as well as freshly packed frozen and canned goods that are scarcely found on shelves in our chain stores. This not only benefits Conway residents, but also the many farmers of the state who depend on produce stands like Green Thumb to sell their goods. In addition, a permanent structure built to code would allow for an improved shopping experience for customers, allowing customers to shop in an air-conditioned building and allow Green Thumb to continue to remain open during an unexpected summer rain shower. A permanent structure would also allow Glenn to post business hours that would be set to adhere to quiet office code. As produce shoppers are generally not a rambunctious bunch, the noise would be kept at a minimum. In fact, you'd probably see a lot of smiling faces as they exited with their delicious goods. I hope the Planning Commission will consider approving the building permit for Green Thumb Produce, as the Conway community would greatly benefit from the expansion of this business. All the best, Rhiannon. And then this letter is from Ben Tyner, the Regional Chief Lending Officer for Chambers Bank. To whom it may concern, Chambers Bank is aware of the zoning change request for 450 Hogan Lane in Conway. We have no concerns regarding the rest of the zoning change. Then he provides his contact information for any follow-up questions. This is from Jason Braswell, Financial Advisor Edward Jones at 355 Hogan Lane, Suite B. To whom it may concern, I am in favor of having Glenn Chadwick's business, Green Thumb Produce, being located at 450 Hogan Lane. My business is located at 355 Hogan Lane, and I support having this well-known business within close proximity to my office. This is from Greg Hartman with the Hartman Animal Hospital at 385 Hogan Lane. To whom it may concern, I am aware and support the rezoning at 450 Hogan for Glenn Chadwick and his business Green Thumb Produce. Thank you. This is from Mitchell King at King Family Dental Care at 405 Hogan Lane, Suite 1. To whom it may concern, we understand Green Thumb Produce would like to build across the road from our office. We consider them an asset to our community. Would gladly welcome their business to our area. And then this is from Laura J. Hanlon, CPA at 360 Payroll Solutions in 950 Hogan, Suite 2. Conway Planning Commission. I own Lot 2, Hogan Professional Park, 3955 College Avenue, Conway, which is adjacent to Lot 4. I purchased this lot because the zoning is O2 and intend to build a professional office building for my CPA firm, including additional offices I would lease to complementary professional businesses. The lower traffic count for professional quiet office use in the surrounding professional buildings, bank, medical, clinics, financial services, etc., are two primary reasons for my investment in this lot as a future site for my CPA firm. While the applicant provided site plan displayed on page 10 of the Planning Commission agenda posted on the City of Conway website is attractive, this plan and request for conditional use contradicts the comprehensive plan for Hogan Professional Park. I have concerns about how this use would affect the development of the area and affect the value of the land. Additionally, there are no retail uses currently in this immediate area. My current office location for my CPA firm is at 950 Hogan Lane, is adjacent to the Plant Outlet Nursery and the Arkansas Produce Stand immediately south of 950 Hogan Lane. I have occupied my existing office space since 2004. I've seen firsthand the impact of a plant nursery and produce stand on Hogan Lane. There are significant traffic increases during busy times of the year for both businesses, which cause damage to the road and property, making it somewhat of an eyesore and disrupts traffic flow. Additionally, the delivery of certain goods used by these businesses brings rodents, snakes, and unpleasant odors, which affect the office building at 950 Hogan Lane. Based on this experience, I am concerned that the conditional use permit for 450 Hogan Lane would bring the same undesirable results for land that is intended to be professional, quiet office space. Thank you for considering my comments and noting my request that the conditional use permit not be granted for restricted retail. That is the end.
Okay, so we've heard the pro and the in favor and the opposition. We've heard the letters in both ways. Are there any additional questions or discussion points before we?
I did. I had a question about, I know it'll be year round, but how many days a week are you planning on being open?
We were going to be open every day, 9 to 6.
Okay, Monday through Sunday?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Do you anticipate getting deliveries, or will you still be picking up?
No, I pick it up.
You still, okay,
I go all over the state.
okay. Those are the only questions I have.
Anyone else have any questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Either we can have some discussion or we can have a motion in favor of approving the, so are there any questions or discussion points you guys want to bring up in favor or?
I think I understand the intent for the conditional use permit.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I mean, it's hard. Like, this spot really hasn't developed probably as fast as the city would have liked it to. You have someone that's been in business for 11 years. And one thing I know that Mr. Tilley had concerns about his elderly patients possibly leaving and traffic and things like that. But I've also seen firsthand, there's a variety of people that live in that area with all types of socioeconomic statuses. And some of those folks find it really hard to get their hands on food because they don't have transportation. I've seen firsthand two senior ladies that walk from the Westlake Apartments to Kroger on a weekly basis, and one of them has a rolling wheel, not a wheelchair, but a walker. And so I think that's when I think of that, I think that's closer. They're not walking as far, maybe it's safer. So I know there's a lot of things to consider besides just it going into a non-retail space when we're looking at all of the citizens of the city.
Laura, I understand your point there, but I think a trip to a different location would still be necessary to get items outside of that. It's closer, yeah. My concern is about the surrounding businesses and what that would do for that location
I
and
was
setting a precedent of having the office.
I was looking to maybe hear feedback from someone that like he's been there in the same area, but now it's a more permanent structure. I didn't hear any opposition about where he currently is, and it really isn't that far. So do you guys have an issue?
I think it blends more where he is now than where he's trying to go. If you ride down Hogan, in my opinion, where he's trying to go with the Planet Outlet and Dollar General and Empty Field blends more with where he is currently than where he's trying. Maybe because I understand the because if he's not going to be forced to build a building that is similar to the surround, because all those buildings there on the left side as you're going, I guess, north on Hogan look similar. They have a similar look, and if you're not going to be forced to conform to that, then you're going to stick out. And I don't know that is.
Would he not be forced to build because he's still in that space and this is just conditional use, would he not be forced to build a comparable building to what's already in the area?
Yeah. That's certainly, I think a condition that you all can entertain. The minimum, he would still be required to meet the minimum standards of 1101, which is our design standards, which is 51% masonry, the landscaping requirements. So it would be
up to code. Yeah,
it would be up to code. Yeah.
Yeah. So what we're seeing here is, you have a porch on 3 sides, you have a warehouse. So it's totally different.
But
it's
the
retail.
warehouse side
It's retail.
is still internal to the main structure, is what it looks like. It didn't look like it was a.
It looks like the back part would be the warehouse, which I don't think you would break that in.
Hey, James, can I participate in the discussion? Okay, I have to abstain from the vote. But my question is, so this is always like real tricky to me. And so it's really for the staff. So, the staff made a recommendation. Sometimes we've seen where the staff will say, it's not consistent with this area, but if you choose to approve it, these things can happen. And that didn't exist with this one. So maybe just give us some insight to like what, the staff was like. I'm always curious to understand what the experts say and want to say and like why you make the recommendation. So maybe help us kind of understand that as much as you can.
I hate to say this, in reliance of the plan, it being outdated in certain areas, it is difficult to rely on as it relates to commercial nodes within newly developed areas in Conway. That is probably one of the aspects where it's been more adhered to. You've seen it happen where you've had additional development spill off of those nodes. That was one of the hallmarks of that original 2004 plan. Was it actually even went to a lawsuit at one point.
Gotcha.
Based on that, the idea that the nodes. But it's the staff recommendation was really, I think, largely based around the consistency with that. This would be somewhat of a precedent-setting case, I would say, in that respect. That said, if that's sort of the Planning Commission's desire is to see retail in this area, then that would be, staff would then review things appropriate in the future based on that.
I'll have to quote Arthur on this. We have to look at the land use, and to me, the land use is quiet offices, and retail, to me, doesn't fit that space. I think it would be a precedent.
Is there a motion, I guess, for more discussion? If we have a motion to go either a motion in the affirmative, and we'll vote from there. Anyone want to make a motion?
I would like to make a motion.
Okay.
And I want to make it in the affirmative. I would like to make a motion that the request for the conditional use permit for the restricted retail space in the 02-2 be approved for the usage that the applicant has explained. I don't see any conditions, and we're not adding any to it at this point outside of what the building code would be for that area. Is that appropriate?
Is there a second?
A second.
All right, should I do a roll? Should we like go vote or just?
The procedure is you do a voice vote, and then if it is not unanimous, then you do a roll call.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Abstain.
Any opposed? I'm opposed. There's two.
No.
Did Larry? Who did Larry? Did Larry?
You'll just go ahead and do it.
Okay. Okay. Drew,
Aye.
Laura,
Yay.
Tisha,
Yay.
you are. Yeah. Abstaining.
No. Nay.
You're abstaining. And I'm a no as well. So that's Larry.
No.
So it would need 5 to pass, and it only got 4. And so the motion fails.
So yes, so the item failed. The applicant does, Mr. Chadwick, you do have the right to appeal that decision to City Council. You can coordinate with our office tomorrow on that.
Are you guys good? Okay. All right. Our next item of business is a request to rezone property at 519 Mitchell Street from R2A to HR. And that is, who's taking that?
Oh. Sorry, I'd already moved on in the. I was looking at my notes for a different item, and then I was like, well, we're done with that one. I was like, oh, we're on to this other one. So, yes, this is a request to rezone 519 Mitchell Street from R2A to HR. The site is approximately 0.25 acres, and the requesting is with the zoning they're requesting is historic residential, which is essentially consistent with sort of the historic lot patterns of the Old Town part of Conway. So whereas, lot size requirements might be 6,000 square feet for single family within that traditional zoning, the HR zoning is 5,000 square feet. So this is intended as a sort of a infill development zone. There's an existing structure, 1,288 square foot single family residence on the site. The area is indicated for single family residential. The potential traffic impact of this would be very minimal. It could accommodate up to the maximum of 10 additional vehicle trips per day. We anticipate about less than 2,500 cars per day on Mitchell Street itself, though we don't have traffic counts. So the applicant is requesting this rezoning. The zoning would allow the existing property to be split to accommodate the construction of additional single-family home on the site. Although that's not the stated intent of the applicant, that appears to be the most logical thing to do in this location. The reason being is that if they tried to split the lot currently, it would be about 540 square feet below the minimum lot size. So they're seeking to do this instead of go through a variance process, which staff appreciates. The comprehensive plan designates the area as single family, consistent with what the rezoning would allow in terms of future development. It would continue the prevailing land use pattern in the neighborhood and allow continued infill development in the neighborhood, which is supported by comprehensive plan policies, and it would not cause harm to the adjacent property. As such, staff recommends approval of the rezoning request. It being consistent with the comprehensive plan would allow for appropriate use of the property in context of the surrounding area. It would not negatively impact adjacent properties. So. Any questions?
All right, thank you, James. Is there anyone here to speak in favor of this request? Good evening. State your name and address for the record.
Hey, I'm Megan Weckworth. I'm with the Tyler Group, 240 Skyline Drive. I'm here to speak in favor of this lot split. It was originally 2 lots. They merged it and became one. They're wanting to resplit it. The south 10 feet of the original lots was divided off because there was an overlap on a building to accommodate them because there was a little bit of an encroachment. And so they can't resplit it because of that additional feet that was taken off. So they're just rezoning it to meet the square footage requirements, basically, for a future lot split. And that's it. Questions?
No, ma'am.
Weckworth? Pretty much. Yeah.
All right.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Is there anyone else to speak in favor of this request? Anyone to speak in opposition of this request? Good evening.
My name is Lee Lawson. I live at 1838 College Avenue, and I'm not necessarily going to speak against it, but a couple of questions. If it goes from, is it R2 now, R2A? Okay, and to HR, the lot requirement is less on HR than it is on R2A, from 6,000 to 5,000. So that can be split. I mean, that's not in question right now, but it can be split at some later date if you jump through all the hoops. Okay.
Yes, sir. That's correct.
And it would fall under the historic design review. Is it in that part?
Yes,
so
sir.
it would follow through with that historic design review.
Yeah. So if they constructed a new structure, then it would go through go to the Historic District Commission, and it would be reviewed.
It is a single family, but it would be consistent with the neighborhood.
Correct.
Right. That's what I thought. So that's all.
Is there anyone else with public comment in opposition to this request? All right, bringing it back into commissioners, questions, comments, discussion points.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed?
I had questions.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. I was wondering, like, where, like, everything around this is R2, so how many streets away is, like, the historic district?
So the HR zone was created, and there's very few, if any, areas that were actually zoned it. It is meant to be essentially used as an infill zoning designation. So the intent within it has been established as an intent when this was adopted that wanted infill development to occur in the old part of Conway. And so part of it is a lot of the existing zoning allows duplex residential. The HR zone is meant to allow a smaller lot single family. And so it's accomplishing the intent of when a lot of those areas were platted out, you'd have 12 lots on a block, which meant there could be 12 homes. In the majority of those lots, they were consolidated or split partially. And so block after block after block, you've got folks that might have had 2 or 3 lots that are now splitting those out and trying to accommodate that later on. What happened in this particular instance, because the original platted lot of record was altered, it means that it couldn't go back. And so it's just kind of a weird situation. But the intent of the zone is for this exact situation.
My understanding, it was split to because they were encroached upon from another property. Okay. So to accommodate someone who had encroached upon the property, it had to be split. So now they're trying to do something with it, I guess. Because it's a smaller lot size, it can't be R2A.
Okay, so back to the vote. Are there any other questions before we go back to the vote? Are we good? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you, guys. The next item up for discussion is a request to rezone property at 1225 East German Lane from O2 to MF1. We have Ms. Quito.
Yes. So the applicant is requesting to rezone this lot from O2 to MF1 for the purpose of constructing a 1,200 square foot accessory structure. The current office zoning limits the maximum area of accessory structures to 160 square feet since it's a non-residential zoning. Residentially zoned lots that are 1 acre or greater in area allow for a total area of accessory structures up to 75% of the main structure. And there's currently a 1,653 square foot single-family residence on the lot, so he would be able to construct the 1,200 square foot accessory structure if this is approved. A little backstory on it: the property was rezoned in 2004 to O2, and a conditional use permit was issued at that time to allow the applicant to operate his plumbing contracting business from his house. But since that time, the property has continued to be used as his residence. The proposed rezoning would not affect the legal conformance of the plumbing contracting business continuing there. The applicant could continue that as a home occupation under the zoning code. Given that properties surrounding this site are predominantly multifamily, moderate density residential development at the site is appropriate. Though no redevelopment is anticipated at this time, if the site is redeveloped in the future, the MF1 zoning will allow for appropriate use of the property, and both platting and site development review processes would be required at that time. Staff recommends approval of the rezoning as it would not likely negatively impact adjacent properties and would allow for appropriate use of the property. And I can answer any questions if you have them.
Accessory structures?
Right. So in any given zoning, you're allowed to build up to a certain total area of accessory structures, an accessory structure being something that, like a storage shed that's an accessory to the main structure. So the house is the primary structure, and he wants to construct an accessory building, I believe for storage in this particular case. But due to the O2 zoning, he's limited to a minimal size. So rezoning it to a residential zoning would allow him to construct a larger.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, that's all. Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay.
All right, any other questions? All right, thank you. Is there anyone to speak in favor of this request?
I am the owner of the said property, and in '96, my wife and I bought the 2 acres next to it, and that's when I constructed a 1,200 square foot building for detached garage, and then I also added a storage building later. And later on, the property was acquired by my sister, and I lived next door, and she rented me the storage building. But then she sold the property, and now I've got all this stuff that used to be inside 1,200 square foot building into storage containers behind my house. And I'd like to construct a building large enough to put the stuff in it. Of course, it's all behind my house. Nobody can see it because there's a privacy fence on one side, and there'll eventually be one on the other side. And I just like for it to look good. And that way I can find stuff.
That makes sense. All right. Any questions? All right, thank you. Anyone else speak in favor of this request? All right, there are none. Anyone speak in opposition to this request? All right, commissioners.
Sounds like an appropriate use of his property.
Move to approve.
I got a motion by Rebecca, second.
Second.
Second by Drew. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Moving on to the next item on our list is a request for a conditional use permit to allow self-storage and boat and RV storage in the TJ zoning district for property located at 285 and 291 Highway 65 North.
So the applicant, like it says, is seeking a conditional use permit to construct a mini storage business there in the TJ zone. This use is not permitted by right in the TJ zoning district, but it is allowed as a conditional use permit. And just a little explanation, the TJ zone is a rural district that is contained within the planning area boundary of the city, but is beyond the city limits. It's a special zoning district designed to accommodate unique geographic criteria in areas with established use patterns that don't readily conform to a single standard zoning district within the city. This area on Highway 65 North has both low-density residential development as well as scattered commercial uses. The proposed use is not consistent with the comprehensive plan. However, given the location along a high-traffic major thoroughfare, single-family is not likely appropriate any longer in that area. So initially, the applicant proposed development of 146 units as phase one, and I believe you have that preliminary site plan in your report. Initially, it was planned to be kind of on the northeast portion of the property. Since staff has reviewed this, the applicant has sent a revised preliminary site plan with the phase one relocated to kind of the south, I guess, eastern portion of the property, and it would be comprised of 194 units. The Planning Commission may go ahead and proceed with consideration of the request if you feel that there's sufficient information to act, or you may opt to table the request until the January meeting to allow for additional review. If you decide to proceed with consideration, staff would recommend a 14th condition in addition to the 13 that are in your report. And condition 14 would require a 20-foot landscape buffer along the western boundary to separate the mini storage use from the adjacent residential uses. But the applicant has indicated that same distance on their preliminary plan, so it looks like they were already planning for that. And the reason for that addition of that condition is relocating phase one to this area. All of a sudden, it is now adjacent to residential uses where it is not in the previous location. And I believe what's on the screen is the revised plan, and you have the original plan in your packet. So I'll leave it up to you how you want to proceed this evening. Do you have any questions? Yeah.
You said if we wanted more review for the January meeting, is that more time for review by you guys, or is that actually review by the commission?
Well, I mean, I would assume by staff. What I will say is this came in very late in the day. I didn't really have a lot of time to discuss with other staff, but I will say, personally for staff, I don't believe it changes our opinion that, or
Okay.
That this is appropriate for this area. Again, it just is how we condition it, because now it's going to all of a sudden be adjacent to residential uses where it was not previously planned. So there just could be some discussion in what conditions we end up with.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to point out on the new map, where are you saying it's adjacent to the residential use?
So you see that, I want to call it the southern boundary, that blue line, they appear to be residential uses. Obviously
Okay.
not the one to the far left, but those appear to be residential uses.
Okay.
Yes. Mhm.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
How far is that from?
They indicate on the plan a 20-foot buffer, which is why I added that additional condition there to make that stay in case the plan shifts.
Oh, I see. I see.
Yes. Mhm.
So
Okay, so they moved it.
They relocated the proposed phase one to the southern as opposed to the northern area.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
do you know why they moved it? Like, was there a reason?
I do not. I'm assuming the applicant is here, so I'm sure we can get that information.
So kudos to you for getting this done late. I know everybody, it's like the end of the year and all the things, right?
Right.
So kudos to you. I guess, did we go through the proper, notification of people being told and having
So they have applied for the conditional use permit for the entire parcel. They had only indicated development for phase one, so they've actually applied for that. One of the conditions that staff recommended was that should they come back to expand at a later time, that they would have to come back for an amended conditional use for the purpose that because it's in the planning area boundary, it's not subject to development review requirements or building permitting. So we would want to make sure that any future expansions were conditioned appropriately to mitigate any negative impacts.
But we checked all the boxes.
Checked all the boxes.
That's what I really
but
wanted to hear.
Given the lateness of it, I wanted to offer you the option to continue if you needed to.
Great, thank you.
Was Rebecca, and you may be able to answer, were you getting at, were those neighbors notified since it was moved around?
They should have been in the original notification
Okay.
because all that's happened is where they plan to develop phase one has moved, but they applied for a conditional use permit for the entire section that you see there. So the notifications would have applied to that.
Okay, thank you.
Is there a street between the storage buildings and where's the residential portion?
It shows on the map Lancaster Lane, I believe.
Is that one big house or is that, what is
No,
that?
there's a couple smaller dwellings, it looks like, to the north of Lancaster Lane there, or to the northeast.
Okay.
So with the 13 conditions we have listed here, and you mentioned one more, did I understand your comment earlier to more time might result in more conditions, or did I mishear that?
I do not believe it would. I think the main, again, I did look at it this afternoon just to make sure, and what I really came up with was when we discovered that it was now going to abut residential, we really just wanted to protect those.
And that's
those
what the
property owners.
14th
And that's where the
condition is.
14th condition came in. Staff still feels that it's an appropriate use of the property.
Hey, Beth, I've got a question.
Yes, sir.
I know you said that's TJ, Rural District. Okay, if that were, what fire department would?
In case something were to happen,
In case something were to happen.
fire district.
Fire district.
I don't have a good answer. It's not Conway.
I think you stumped us, Larry.
Yeah.
We don't know.
Okay, just,
Mhm.
all right.
All right.
I'm sure whatever it does, it likely has a mutual aid agreement with our fire department. Because that's inevitably, those small rural districts usually have a mutual aid agreement, which means we show up faster than they do usually.
Right.
They would be required to put up the adequate, fire, whatever they needed to put out a fire, stuff like that, right? Fire hydrants, yeah.
And such.
Yeah, that would be something they would have to coordinate with the local fire
Okay.
district and Beaver Fork Water.
Well, I don't have a problem with it.
So that answers it. It's a Beaver Fork. Could be
Beaver Fork, yes, that's what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
All right, any other questions for Ms. Ito?
No.
Okay. All right.
I'm sure the applicant
I
can
am,
give you some more information.
Anyone to speak in favor of this request?
Good afternoon. My name's Adam Whitlow with Whitlow Engineering Services out of Searcy. I'm actually representing both the buyer and the seller in this case. I'm their engineering consultant. To give you a little background on why the site shifted and late in the game, once we received the staff comments, one of the staff comments was that this, where we had applied for the conditional use across the entire property, and originally showed the development in the northeast corner and then a future expansion, and where we've got the current version, the staff comments limited their approval or limited essentially the approval to phase one of construction, and any amendments would need to come back for an amendment to the conditional use. So that prompted us a little bit closer look. This portion is actually a little bit more conducive to phase one. The ground is a little bit higher in this location, and there's a 1031 tax exchange involved. So there's a timing issue. So we wanted to be as thorough as we could on this front side. And I told the planning staff I apologize for the late addition, but it is kind of as a result of some of the staff comments that we wasn't aware of. But yeah, we would ask for consideration since there is a timing issue on this. If you see fit to move forward with action on it,
because this essentially is a contingent sale. So if things don't move forward, you know, my client has other options to move forward with their 1031. But with that being said, they've done a significant amount of due diligence on this site. Had a pretty significant feasibility study done, looking specifically at the boat and RV storages, and it this property showed to be conducive for that use. I've looked at it from a technical standpoint. I mean, this is a preliminary development site plan, but you know, we plan to move forward very quickly with the full construction plans, subject to this conditional use approval. But be glad to answer any questions y'all have. Miss Breyer is here with us tonight too, who's the buyer in this situation. I can't answer anything.
I have a
Yes, ma'am.
question. And this is pertaining to the letter that was submitted. I guess it's like the third paragraph, the one right before please call, if you can provide. So with the new submittal, is there anything that would change on how that's divided of the east and west side of the property, how the buildings were relocated, about how that will make the change of the water flow on the property with how the buildings were moved, and will that affect any of the residents in the nearby area?
No, this property falls predominantly, you know, you see the big purple area there in the middle. That's a pretty big swath of regulatory floodplain. So right now we are not encroaching into that floodplain with any development. So we're kind of leaving that as best we can in the natural area. So all the water in either scenario flowed to that floodplain, regulatory floodplain.
Okay.
So it doesn't flow due south or due north. It's where everything we've got planned is directed to the existing waterway.
Okay.
And just to clarify, if they were to encroach in the floodplain, they would still be subject to floodplain regulations. Okay. So OEM, the Office of Emergency Management, reviews those things out in the county.
Okay, thank you.
It's a lot of property, you know, and I'm sure, you know, we hope this first phase does well, and we've got plans for you know, future expansion of this if needed to, and you know, look forward to coming back before this board and hopefully adding more or other uses as time goes on. But like I said, this is the one that we hope to kick things off with.
And I think you touched on this, but just to clarify, you're good with all the conditions? Or
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I should have mentioned that. Yes,
Okay.
we have read through all the conditions. We're certainly good with the conditions, and we're good with the additional condition of the land 20-foot buffer on the southwest side there. Yeah, and this version, you know, I've already accommodated some of the original staff comments, which was the tree, the landscape, and the trees at 30-foot spacing on the Highway 65 side.
All right, are there any other questions? All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Is there anyone else to speak in favor of this request? All right, anyone to speak in opposition to this request? All right, bringing it back into commission. Commissioners, any questions, concerns, discussion points, or a motion in either direction or in the affirmative?
A motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion passes. Are you gonna are we combining these last two, or are we gonna do them separately? Same as
If you want me to give a joint report, we get 2 votes.
Okay.
It needs 2 votes.
Okay. The final 2 votes for tonight are around the same address. It's a request to rezone property at 766 Harkrider Street from C3 to C1, and a request to rezone another portion of that same property from R2A to C3. And we want to have James to walk us through that.
Yes, so you'll see on the map that's up on the screen, the area that's highlighted that's in red is the request at C3 to go to C1. And then there's an additional property just to the southeast of there that's R2A that's surrounded by C3 that would go to C3 based on this. So this site is approximately 0.75 acres. It's currently zoned C3 and R2A. It falls within the Old Conway Design Overlay Urban District here, which is indicated on the comprehensive plan as a special study area. Essentially, the urban district is intended to be an extension of downtown. We don't really have a lot of area that is on the east side of Harkrider that is zoned downtown currently, even though when they get approval for development in these locations, they're required to meet all of the standards that would be consistent with the structure that you would have downtown. So in this area, we view the addition of C1 in that area as being very welcome as sort of an outgrowth of downtown. So based on that, I would say it's largely consistent with the comprehensive plan in that location. Additionally, we don't see that it would cause harm to the adjacent property. As it relates to that portion that is zoned R2A, the entirety of that property is zoned or surrounded by C3. So it's not really compatible with residential use anymore, as it is entirely enclosed. It's all currently a parking lot. That was originally for the church. That's largely why it's got such scattershot zoning in this location, is because of the church. So as far as we're aware, the applicant intends to develop the bank on the west side of the property, and then on the east side of the property, likely sell that off for some type of mixed use development or commercial development in the future, which would. Again, the bank itself has already gone through review by the Historic District Commission, and it's currently going through site development review. So the zoning is sort of unrelated to that. It just happens to be one of the additional items that they want to clean up with it. So, any questions?
I have two.
Mm-hmm.
One, what is the benefit for the bank to go from C3 to C1? And then the second question is, because this is being considered for like downtown purposes, will that affect future, like is the city hoping that more of that side of Harkrider would become considered downtown, or is this just like a one-off kind of anomaly?
The primary reason for C1 on that site, because the urban district itself changes setbacks and several things, there's only one small aspect of this that provides good reason to do that, and it's because C1 allows some level of encroachment or overhangs into right-of-way, whereas that would not be allowed in C3. So they've got some planters and balconies, and that's purely the reason. We do, yes, the city obviously would love to see additional development occur on the east side of Harkrider. CVS was kind of the beginning of that really transformed that side of Oak and Harkrider. And yeah, we very much, staff work very much welcomes this development, thinks will be a great asset, and we would love to see other folks on that side of Harkrider develop in a consistent manner.
Any other questions for James? All right, thank you, sir. Is there anyone to speak in favor of this request?
Good evening, I'm Brad Peterson with Craft & Tull Engineers. Our address is 10825 Financial Center Parkway in Little Rock. As James indicated, we prepared a site plan for the bank redevelopment. We're working with architects out of Little Rock, RPPY. They prepared that rendering and preliminary plans to go through the Historic District review. We've also submitted for our site plan review and a replat of the property. And as James stated, the intent is to develop the bank on the west half of the property, and the remaining area on the east would be marketed for redevelopment in some type of commercial fashion. And as he explained, the C1 is just to kind of clean up some of those things with the building architecture and some awnings and balconies that would overhang the right-of-way. Happy to answer any questions you have on either application.
As far as what is planned for the balcony, for the upper level, is that banking or is that just?
It'd be offices generally. So the main floor would be the banking lobby and drive-through services and a community room. First Community Bank is based in Batesville. They've had pretty rapid growth over the past, I think, 25 years since they were founded. And their banking centers, they do focus on the community and providing amenities for residents. So there'd be a community room on the first floor that'd be available for events or folks who use the bank to reserve on occasion. The upper floor would just be offices and break room space. They do have some balconies, kind of that old style building with some balconies or awnings that overhang the right of way. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, thank you, sir.
Thanks.
Is there anyone here to speak in opposition of this request? If not, we can bring it in for discussion, further topics, or a motion to approve.
Does it need to be two?
Yes, happy two votes. That's yes. So okay, let me go back. So the first one we're gonna let's focus on E first. So on the first issue, which is a request to rezone the property at 766 Hawk Rider from C3 to C1. Is there a motion or are there individual questions or issues with that one?
I'll make the motion to approve.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or any abstentions? All right, passes unanimously. For the second section of the same property, to rezone from R2A to C3. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Make a motion.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or any abstaining? All right, motion passes. That completes our public hearing items. I don't think there's anything else unless anyone has anything.
There being no further business?
Well, I would like to say it is wonderful to see Larry's face tonight. Even though he's tiny on the screen, we're so excited for him to be able to join with us tonight.
Thank you.
So, Larry, you have anything you wanted to share?
No,
or
sir.
anything?
I should have, hopefully, the doctor said I should have a transplant within 1 week to 1 month. So, thank you.
That's great.
That's great.
But we'll be
Thank
praying
you
for
very
you.
much.
Thank you very much.
I would just like to recognize that it's Brandon and Arthur's last meeting, and we've been so blessed by their leadership and by their fellowship. And so, I mean, I just think that they, at the very least, deserve a round of applause.
Yeah.
And
At the
thank you. We're going to miss you.
I would also like to let you know that, and staff knows this already, but tonight will be my last meeting as my business continues to grow and makes it challenging for me to be at these meetings. I had missed 3 this year, and I hated to do that. So just ongoing for the benefit of the commission, I am going to step down. But thank you so much for the last 2 years. I really appreciate you allowing me to serve.
Well,
Yeah,
thank you.
thank
We'll
you.
miss you.
Yeah, thank you.
Wow.
I'm going to take this plaque with me.
Anyone made a motion to adjourn?
There being no further business, I make a motion that we adjourn.
Second.
All right.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
I like that. Amen.